Let's take a closer look at the Black Series NED-B 6-inch action figure from Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Varykino, living the Star Wars life.
Hello there, and welcome back to the Varykino YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be taking a closer look at the NED-B 6-inch figure from Hasbro's The Black Series line. This figure is from the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, and as you can see, it is in a windowless Black Series box. This is part of Hasbro's recent plastic-free packaging program, so we cannot see the figure inside. It has sort of this shiny picture against the matte finish of the box. You can sort of see it shiny there. This is okay if you sort of store your Black Series on a shelf, so you can put it next to others like Obi-Wan from the series, and you know, the pictures look pretty much the same. You can't really tell the difference with the packaging. Of course, when you go and put them face forward, if you want to display them on your shelf like this, there is a big difference here. So that's a little bit of a shame. We do appreciate the, the effort made to reduce plastic packaging, but we disagree with Hasbro when it comes to products that we know collectors want to keep in their packaging. This is not single use. This is, we're keeping this like this. For certain other Hasbro products, say the Bounty collection, the earlier series had a window so you could see the figures. Recent series are just a cardboard box because less likely people are keeping these packaged. I prefer to take them out, so you can see there's no figures in these, so it doesn't really matter. This plastic is not really going to be kept. This one is just cardboard, so of course that works. So it's a little bit of a shame they're going this route. Personally, for me, I like to go through the paint jobs of the figures available on the shelves and make sure that I have found one that doesn't have any major flaws. It's always a shame when you see one and it's got something botched up. I had a Vader once that had a big silver sort of smear of paint across his chest plate. It was really distracting. It was such a shame. You wouldn't choose it if you could see it. So for this figure, I can't see what it looks like. So I am keen to open it up. At the moment, we're a bit of a mix of keeping some Black Series boxed and some we open. This one, we're just going to have to open because it doesn't really matter. If you are the sort of person that gets conflicted, you could essentially keep the packaging on your shelf and then the figure loose. So you don't really need to buy it twice because you can't see that there's no figure inside. But I am glad that Hasbro have announced that they're going to be returning back to the window packaging for Black Series. Hoping they keep the same style. I find that I really like their current style with the artwork and the windows. It's definitely a bit more interesting than those original black boxes with just the red stripe down the side, no pictures. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the packaging. So we'll open them up very shortly. I'll just put Obi-Wan out of the way so we can take a look at the packaging before I open it. As we have that gloss print, we have the color stripe. Each series has its own specific color sort of branding. For the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, they went with a blue, which I feel fits. Obi-Wan, of course, uses a blue lightsaber. He is a light side character, so I think the blue was a good choice for the series. We can see the artwork of NED-B there on the side. A image there of the figure indicating that it is 6.6 inches tall or 16.8 centimeters. We have the big graphic talking about the plastic-free packaging and a little bit of information there on the back. It says, Obi-Wan Kenobi is set years after the dramatic events of Star Wars Revenge of the Sith, where Kenobi faced the corruption of his friend and Jedi apprentice, Anakin Skywalker turned Sith Lord Darth Vader. And then it has that repeated in a few different languages. And we have another glossy image of NED-B on the back. The artwork, text on the back. And interestingly, obviously no window on the top like the other Black Series, and this hanger is cardboard. So if your store hangs your Black Series, this will probably get a little bit more worn than the plastic ones used on the window boxes. Our local store puts these on the shelves, so this wasn't damaged, but I have seen some ripped in some places, which is a shame. So I'll get stuck in. I'm going to open it from the bottom. It's a bit easier to open than the top with all those layers of sellotape there. So I'm going to dive in and open this one up. Okay, so just going to put the box to one side. We can see that we have a cardboard tray with the figure sort of bound in with some white cardboard that's been sellotaped in place, and the accessories are wrapped up in paper sort of tucked in here. So I'm just going to pull out these bits. So you can see no plastic zip ties, but the figure does look like it's in there securely. So I'm going to have to cut these paper strips. I don't like, well, they just rip anyway, so that's okay. Okay. And I guess to help protect the figure, they have them wrapped in this tissue paper that has a repeating print of the Black Series logo, which is backwards here, because it's on the opposite side. Okay, so just going to put the packaging off to the side so we can take a closer look at the figure. We've just got the little bit of safety information and stuff. So he is quite a big figure. This is quite cool. So he's a little bit sort of, his joints are all in just sort of different angled poses. It looks like he's going to have some good articulation. Just holding him, I can see the cool sort of rusty type weathering all over him here. Which is quite fun. It's kind of like a really dark silver, dark grey there in places. We've got blue accents, but yes, it's not a complicated paint job. He is predominantly, we can see, made in grey plastic for some components and just solid block yellow for the rest of it. So from the back, he looks fairly undetailed. We can see a slot here for attaching an accessory part. I'll get to that in a minute. And we can see he's definitely more detailed from the front, but let's face it, we generally display figures from the front anyway, so he's looking pretty cool. I'll test to see how well he stands up, and I'll go through all the articulation points in a minute. There we go. Okay, got him standing up there for a bit. Let's have a look at the accessories. We've got a sort of a sealed sort of wax paper packet here with 3 components. 3 little pouches, so I'm going to open these up and see what we've got in here, because the box art does depict some interesting accessories. Okay, we have his backpack there with some blue detailing there. We have a hammer. This looks quite cool. And the final accessory here is a battle droid blaster. Well, that's cool. Okay, again, I'll pop that out of the way and we can take a look at the figure. Okay, so I'm going to put this one on the back. So I assume, without double checking, yep, the loop goes at the top. Okay, let's see how well this clips on. Oh, okay, and these side pieces. Okay, that's a bit fiddly. Okay, so I don't know if you can see that. There are little holes here on the side that these parts are going to plug into. So you've got to put this on and then plug those components in. I kind of wish they had just done that for us. Okay, this is going to be interesting. Let's see how well I can get this to snap on. Is that going to click? Okay, it just kind of slowly pushes in there with tension. I wasn't sure if it was going to sort of snap into place. Okay, now let's see. Okay. This is fiddly. These are little small components that are going to take a bit of work to push in. Oh my gosh, they are really stiff. Okay, so I took a break to try and wrestle with this backpack a little bit further, and with the help of my husband, I think I've managed to, well, both of us have managed to put these pegs in a little bit better, but by golly, it was a rough job of it. That was really hard to press these in. There's kind of a little bit of a flat edge. These are not just full circle sort of insert little posts. So you kind of have to get them at the right angle for them to sort of want to go in, but you don't really have a lot of maneuverability with the way that they are attached to the back of NED-B. I don't know why they decided to do it this way around. Personally, I would have preferred it to have these hoses connected to the backpack, and that once we stick it on, we've got a little bit more sort of finger room to push these in, because these knobs get in the way. It's really hard to kind of press like this with these here up against the back. As you can see, we got it sort of about as close as we can. See if I can get the camera to focus on it. So got them in reasonably well. See if I get the camera to focus on that. But yeah, that is a little bit frustrating. I guess they've done that because of the width of this figure with that backpack on. Honestly, it doesn't feel like that much. I know the likes of generally the Mandalorian characters that have backpacks, jetpacks, they tend to be separate in the packaging and that, but this I felt like they could have been a little bit designed better. Just sort of one connecty. I mean, they've used magnets in the past. Maybe, you know, like there are other ways to make that a little bit easier. Once that's on, I'm not taking it off. So yeah, let's have a look at his articulation. So he's got classic neck articulation, side to side, all that sort of jazz. There is a little bit of articulation for the top of his head. You can see his neck. This bit goes up and down. You get a little bit of movement there. Classic shoulder movements, elbows, and some rotations, and a little bit at the wrists. His fingers do not articulate. They look segmented, but they are sculpted closed. So classic sort of holding pose. This one is more sort of like just a classic grasping hand for things like the tools. This one has a finger out for sort of like a trigger on a blaster. One thing that I notice that isn't as obvious in the artwork is there is a clear peg through the center of the articulation joints. So I guess that is to sort of replicate a hollow center, but you can actually see light through them, which I thought was kind of a fun way to do it. Give it a bit more stability while still kind of creating the illusion of that being a hollow center through the articulation in his joints. So we've also got upper torso articulation. I don't know that he's got a lot. He wants to kind of twist at this point. I don't know that he wants to articulate at the waist much. He just kind of wants to articulate at that point, which is kind of interesting. A lot of figures, sometimes like Stormtroopers and that, they'll have articulation through the upper chest and then still through the waist. He doesn't really want to. He kind of just wants to turn at that point, which is interesting. Some very stiff joints here at the hips. Because of the armor plating, that's about as forward as that leg is going to go. This armor plate hits here. It's not gonna, he can't sort of kick forward. Not that he does a lot of action moves like that. Very easy joints at the knees. These feel like the loosest joints on this figure. He kind of swivels a little bit there. And tighter articulation at the ankles there. These ones will also kind of do rotations at both ends. So this grey sort of center articulation can rotate at both the top of the lower leg and just below the thigh as well. So lots of bendy points there in the legs, possibly to make up for the fact that because of the design of the character, there's not a lot of a movement here. These are very stiff. So same kind of articulation on the other arm, all that sort of classic good movements. He's a little bit plain on the underside here, but that is part of the character design. He's obviously much cooler with the tops of his arms there, and that blue looks quite cool. I do really like the weathering here, and obviously the blue accent painting here. Some of the light picks up, you can see it's kind of got like a pebbled texture to the plastic. I don't know how well that will show up. It's not like completely smooth. I think that's kind of fun. It's like a sort of, not quite a hammered metal, but more textured. Down on the thighs, it looks a little smoother, and down here, I think we can kind of see it perhaps the most here. You can see it doesn't look completely smooth. There's kind of like hammered bits here because he's obviously a beaten up droid, so he's not completely new and shiny. I think that's an interesting way of adding a little bit more weathering that isn't the hard paint job that we see here. He does look quite sort of bright and yellow. I know that there are talented artists out there that do a sort of more accurate paint job and weathering to Black Series in particular. The scale works well for customization, for doing paint jobs. He does look very clean on the back at a glance. Mostly the weathering we see is just a little bit at the shoulders, and on this back plate here, that's where it has the most weathering, and then there's just absolutely nothing down the back of the legs. It's just completely yellow plastic and completely grey plastic for the articulation there. So that's a little plain, but to be honest, I am going to be displaying him facing forward, so that doesn't bother me too much. I think the face sculpt is quite cute. I think it captures the character quite well with the little yellow eyes there, and the weathering around that sort of face area there. I think it looks quite cute. I think it captures the character well. He does stand up pretty well. I can play around with his articulation. He's a pretty top-heavy character. There's a lot of bulk through this chest, but he's got sturdy legs to support him there. So let's take a look at the two holdable weapons. You can essentially put one in each hand because this hammer is going to go very well in his grasping hand. Let's see how well he can hold this. Okay, a little bit of pushing. He holds that nicely. Let's face that forward. That looks quite fun. The hammer is not too complicated, a dark sort of grey with a bit of a brown section on the handle to be, I guess, wood. Not much weathering, not a complicated paint job. It does the job. The Battle Droid Blaster is kind of a darker grey. It doesn't look like a flat black, not quite. It's more of a, almost like a gunmetal grey. So this one's always fun, trying to get these sorts of things into grasping hands. So let's see how easily this will go in. If I just... It's alright, it's kind of not one that wants to really sort of go in his hand well. Well, I can put it like that. I'll probably play around with it and see if I can get it into his hand a little bit better. Because his thumb is up quite high. I don't know if it's supposed to go in kind of lower. He can kind of hold it. If I put his middle finger through the trigger, I can get his thumb just under that, and his finger's kind of not quite on the trigger at the front, but that perhaps looks a little bit better. So it's not too bad for holding some weapons. I personally like him with the hammer the best. That is how they have depicted him on the front of the box, holding the hammer. They do have him holding the blaster on the side of the box, so I guess that's up to you how you want to display him there. But yeah, overall, cool figure for a sort of a fun character. I'm hoping to add more Black Series figures to our Obi-Wan Kenobi series collection. I do think he could do with just a little bit of weathering, a little bit more. He does look very yellow, but I guess that is the point for this character. And yeah, that backpack was a fuss. I think it's a shame that you can kind of see that light through the back. It clearly looks like a component that's been stuck on and not glued on because there's just this gap. It's not too bad around the back at least. But yeah, definitely down here you can kind of see in and see that it's just a hollow plastic component. There it's not painted on you know, it's just sort of, you can see. Of course, this is a toy. It's an action figure. It's not going to be completely accurate to the character. But there you go. Now I'm finally glad to be able to see it in person, you know, with those windowless boxes in the stores. I'm glad that I got one with no major flaws, no broken pieces. I know that there have been stories, we've known friends that have experienced buying a blind box only to have pieces missing, essentially stolen out of the packaging while in the store. So you go and bring it home and you find that major components or the figure itself is missing, or something else has been put inside just to make up the weight when somebody has basically returned it to the store for a refund and made off with the figure. So that is another reason why we do not like basically the blind boxes for Black Series. The price point and collectability of these figures does make them a target for that kind of underside of collecting. But all in all, I think he's cool. I definitely like the way that he holds the hammer. I think that's quite nice. I like the articulation. I like those clear pegs to sort of give the illusion of those being hollow joints. He stands nicely. I was a little bit worried, him being a sort of a heavy figure, that he would be a little bit of a tricky one to pose and stand up, but I think he looks cool. So thank you so much for watching. Check out our other videos if you want to see more unboxings and Star Wars adventures. I'll have some close-up photos of him in the blog so that you can see some of these details up a little bit closer. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Catch you on the next one. And as always, may the Force be with you.
If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a like, check out our other videos, and subscribe for alerts about new uploads. Thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.